Imagine your favorite underdog just tried to buy the league's MVP and got told to sweeten the deal. Well, that's exactly what's happened when Ripple slid a $5 billion check across the table to Circle, and watch it slide all the way back. So, here's the roller coaster that we're about to ride together. I woke up the other day, scrolled through the usual doom scroll of crypto headlines, and nearly inhaled my coffee when I read that Ripple, yes, the XRP people, quietly offered up to $5 billion to grab Circle, the company behind the $61 billion USDC stablecoin. Now, Circle basically patted them on the head and said, "Cute, but no," and went back to polishing its IPO paperwork. And that's just the polite version, right? But don't blink, because buried in that rejection is a plot twist that could yank XRP out of the bridge asset friend zone and make it the popular kid in global finance. So stick with me here, because we're going to unpack how every single handshake, if it ever happens, might actually make Wall Street finally say, X, what now? And why it matters for your portfolio way beyond the usual Moonboy hype. Alright, picture this. It's 6 AM. The sun over Dubai hasn't bothered to clock in yet, and my phone starts buzzing like it owes me money. Now, the first alert, Bloomberg whispering that Ripple, lobbed a $4 to $5 billion bid at Circle and got the stiff arm. Now, my half-awake brain doing the math, $5 billion is pocket change for a company sitting on a war chest of XRP worth north of $30 billion, especially after beating the SEC rap last year. Second alert, right, 30 seconds later, crypto Twitter is already spinning the rumor mill up to $20 billion. Now, at that point, I'm thinking, either there's a typo or Ripple just offered to buy Circle twice over. But here's the kicker. Experts quickly called the 20 billion figure fantasy, because even Circle's own bankers are whispering that they'll go public at $4 to $6 billion tops. Now, why would Ripple even want Circle? Well, let's zoom out. Right, Ripple's playing 4D chess with stablecoins. Right, they've already launched RLUSD, their in-house stablecoin that slid onto RippleNet and Ethereum last month, like it owned the place. Right now, it's tiny today, but about $170 million in market cap. Right, but Ripple's bragging it'll hit top 5 status by New Year's Eve. That's ambitious, sure, but here's the kind of gee whiz kind of stats then. USDC supply is now brushing $61 billion, up almost 40% since January. So imagine pouring that ocean of liquidity into Ripple's plumbing. Well, that's the part where the legacy banks suddenly sit up, loosen their pinstripe ties, and ask who invited the crypto kids to the grown-up table. So if Ripple sealed the deal, they wouldn't just buy a stablecoin. They would buy instant credibility. Now, Circle spent years cozying up to regulators, building bank partnerships, and basically doing all the boring compliance homework that crypto rebels usually skip. Now, snapping that up in one purchase would hand Ripple the regulatory halo that it's been chasing since the SEC dust-up. Now, that's like skipping the GarageBand to, Grammy nominee pretty much overnight. But hey, you ask, didn't Ripple just drop $1.25 billion on Hidden Road 2 weeks ago? Spot on, right? Hidden Road is a prime brokerage clearing $3 trillion a year for heavy hitters. Now, Ripple scooped it up, they're scooped it up to house their shiny RLUSD as margin collateral. So institutions can trade stocks, bonds, and crypto all under one roof. So you see the pattern, right? Ripple isn't just building a bridge asset anymore. They're building the toll booths, the road signs, and the kind of souvenir shop. And here is where the plot thickens, right? All Things XRP, the commentator who basically speaks fluent Ripple-ese, argues that if Ripple kind of grabs Circle. XRP stops being the middleman and starts becoming the main event. Now, he calls XRP the connective tissue, binding RLUSD and USDC together. So imagine one network where swapping between two rock-solid dollars takes seconds and costs fractions of a penny, all greased by XRP. Now suddenly cross-border payments, FX trades, and even tokenized stocks can settle faster than it can take you to decide what to watch on Netflix. But hold up. There's a monster in the hallway. Right, Circle has zero incentive to sell. Right, it's chasing a splashy IPO that could peg its value at up to $10 billion. And public markets love a good growth story, especially when regulators kind of finally start playing nice with stablecoins. And if they do list, well, Circle could raise billions without surrendering control. Now, from their vantage, Ripple's check kind of looks like early bird pricing at a yard sale. So where does this then leave XRP holders like us? Well, this is the part that kind of had me pacing the living room tiles like a caffeinated cat. If Ripple's ups the ante and or maybe even keeps nibbling with strategic buys, think more hidden road type deals, well, Circle might feel the heat. Right, stablecoin rail wars are brewing, right? Tether's busy minting on Tron, PayPal's crawling towards its own coin, and banks from, ING to BOA are quietly setting up stablecoin desks, right? The pie is growing, but so is the competition. Ripple's bet is that locking down the second largest stablecoin now gives them an unbeatable 2-for-1 USDC liquidity plus RLUSD flexibility wrapped around XRP rails. Okay, let's nerd out for a hot minute. Picture the global payments cake, worth a cool $250 trillion a year. Slice that into 3 layers, right? You've got consumer remittances, corporate treasuries, and interbank settlements. Now, SWIFT still rules the kind of frosting, but it's brittle, slow, and costier than ordering breakfast in room service form. Right? Ripple nets early kind of slicing fees up to 70% for partners using XRP as a bridge. But liquidity is still the bottleneck, right? Stablecoins fix that by parking dollars on-chain 24/7. So if Ripple nails Circle, right, they inherit the deepest on-chain USD pools this side of Tether. Now, only with, cleaner audits and US regulator high fives. Suddenly, XRP's liquidity crunch looks more like a backyard kiddie pool filled by a fire hose. Now, let's talk risk, because no story is complete without some scary music, right? First, regulators could still gatecrash, right? A mega merger of 2 seismic stablecoins might trigger some antitrust alarms, or at least a dozen strongly worded letters. Second, USDC isn't just a token. It's a brand humming on Coinbase, Solana, Polygon, and about a dozen banks that like Circle's squeaky clean reserves. Any whiff that Ripple might monkey with the peg or use USDC as a Trojan horse, and those partners could bail, right? Third, there's the pesky question of valuation. Even if Ripple threw $10 billion on the table, shareholders might say we can do better on NASDAQ. Now trust me, I've watched enough Shark Tank to know how confident founders love to say we're not in a hurry to sell. Okay then, deep breath. Let's jump into the what if, right? Imagine Ripple somehow closes the deal. Day 1, headline scream, XRP powers dual stablecoin empire. Right? Liquidity floods RippleNet, banks pilot USDC to RLUSD swaps settled in seconds, and traders arbitrage spreads away faster than you can blink. Now, XRP's demand curve steepens because every swap spins up a tiny XRP slither of bridge fuel. And because Wall Street loves liquidity, like teens like TikTok, big funds start viewing XRP not as speculative fluff, but as the plumbing that they can't avoid. Now, the price chart doesn't just spike, it matures. Less wild swings, more steady grind. Now, what happened with kind of Bitcoin, or when Bitcoin ETFs finally actually opened the floodgates. Now, here's the nutty subplot. Even if Circle keeps swiping left, right, the cat's out of the bag. Ripple's kind of telegraphed its punch, right? It wants to dominate stablecoin rails. Hidden Road shows that they pay handsomely to plug institutional pipes. Rumors suggest that they're eyeing for other regional stablecoins, maybe a euro-backed one in the EU, a pesos version in Latin America. And if they stitch that quilt together, XRP could end up as the invisible layer of the DNS that powers every website. Right? You don't think about it, but nothing works without it. Okay, so let me bring this down to street level with a quick story. Remember my buddy Sam? He's the one who sent me kind of 500 dirham worth of XRP last year when I was testing how fast I could cash out at least at a UAE exchange. Right? It took 14 seconds for the transfer, but a full day for the fiat to clear through my bank. Now, Sam texted me that morning, bro, if USDC and RLUSD lived on RippleNet, do I even need a bank? Now, that's the kind of light bulb moment, right? If payments feel like emails, instant and basically free, old rails start looking like fax machines. But wait, let's not pop that champagne just yet, right? The climax of this saga may hinge on Circle's IPO roadshow. If investor appetite fizzles, Ripple's offer suddenly looks tastier. Right? If IPO demand goes crazy, well, Ripple either ponies up more cash or pivots. Now, all things XRP hinted Ripple could pursue Circle by launching competing incentives, maybe slashing fees on RLUSD corridors to siphon volume from USDC. It's game theory with billions of dollars and, frankly, juicy content for the next season of Crypto Thrones. And so, where do we land? Right, Ripple tossing $5 billion at Circle wasn't a random flex. It was a chapter 1 of a consolidation play designed to make XRP the default bridge asset, the invisible but indispensable battery in global finance's flashlight. Now, whether Circle bites or barks, Ripple exposed its hand, right? Dominate payments, own stablecoin rails, and shove XRP into every money flow possible. Now, that intent alone could evolve XRP from cameo role to co-star, or, with or without potentially the acquisition. Meanwhile, of course, if you want the day-to-day kind of takes on this drama and as it unfolds, jump into our free crypto Discord server via the link that is in the description down below, right? We riff on every leak, chart, and meme in the kind of minute that it happens. And yes, your hot takes are, of course, welcome. All right, let's quickly recap before we zip this one up. Right, Ripple waved a $5 billion carrot at Circle and got told to try harder. That snub spotlights how valuable USDC's $61 billion liquidity pool actually is. If Ripple lands it, XRP graduates, from bridge token to core infrastructure, backed by regulatory love inherited from Circle, plus the institutional on-ramp unlocked via Hidden Road. If not, well, the bidding war itself signals a new arms race for stablecoin dominance. With Ripple already owning a nimble RLUSD slingshot, either way, XRP's role in global payments just leveled up from interesting experiment to must-watch heavyweight.